Game on. Hey there, game gurus. Welcome back to the channel. Well, today I'm going to be talking about a little modification kit to this My Arcade Space Invaders. Now, this thing's actually really cool. This My Arcade Space Invaders has what we call the mirror effect. So when I bought mine, it was only $40. I think now it's gone up to like $60. But even at $60, I think it's kind of worth it. The mirror effect is they have a piece of plexiglass in here with the screen down here and a background. So the Space Invaders look like they're going over a planet, which is how the arcade was. Now, Numbskull is working on one of these, a 1/4 scale, but it's going to be very expensive. I paid $40 for this. But, you know, it doesn't fit any scale. I mean, it fits the MyArcade scale, the line, and basically the size of it. It was a little bit wider because of the mirror effect. But it doesn't fit the rest of like my New Wave Toys, the GRS Build-A-Cades, which would be really cool if that could. Well, fortunately, someone in the community did just that, which we're talking about today. Let's turn this into this. This is cool. Let's take a look at this today on Glenn's Retro Show. Let's get started. Okay, so this is the little package I got here from Jeffrey McKelvy, if I'm saying his name right. And he's going to be offering this as a kit you guys can purchase. I'll give pricing down below and towards the end of the video. But what I noticed is he packed everything here extremely well. Now, the one thing we get is going to be the artwork, which is this right here. There's all our artwork for the new side panels. And what else we have in here? We have a little coin door and new joysticks that are much shorter than the long one included. And then packaged really, really well is a 3D printed base. So I take this thing out of the package here, and everything was very well packaged. So here's the base. So he's got rubber feet on the bottom. This is the front. And basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting this guy here like this when all is said and done, and make it a 1/6 scale machine. Of course, we got to get the artwork and everything else on here, so I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But let's get started on this little project. Okay, let me take some of this stuff out of the way. This is, got to keep one pristine. I always do that. That's never going to change. That's just how I am. And here is our machine. And what's kind of neat, on the bottom there are these rubber feet, and he actually made the 3D print, so it actually has them in here. But we have some artwork here, so let's take a look at that and see what we have here. There's a couple pieces in here. Here is for the coin door. Looks like we have a high gloss and more of a matte finish. I think I'm going to go with more of the high gloss. You can see right here. But it does have a matte finish. I'm going to see if I do both at the same time. You can see they're a little bit different. One is more shiny than the other. They both have a shine, but I think I like the higher gloss better. And what else we have in here? I think it's just the side artwork, which you can see here if I can get it unfolded. I'm probably going to flatten these out a little bit. So it's going to be a full sheet. So basically when you put this thing on here, turn it to the side for a second, like so, you're going to put this sheet that'll completely go on the side. So once this is done, you won't be able to separate the halves. So I might put some little glue in there just to make sure that it doesn't come apart. And that's what we have here. We have just different samples of the same thing, just higher gloss and not. So that's all the artwork. I'm gonna have to get these flattened out. And then inside here, let me take this down for a second. Got a little like change area. So this will be going inside here, like so. And it looks like that may stay pretty good as it is. But the joystick on here is removable. You just twist this off and it comes off. You can see how tall that is. And it's kind of ingenious. He kind of made these, but he just took like little standoffs they would use for like a PC. And he 3D printed a little ball. And you can see it's much shorter. So you can put it together. You can see here, I'm trying to show as best I can. It's kind of hard to show right now. I'll have to do it when I put it in the machine. But you can see it's a much smaller, more accurate size, I think, than the larger ball. So it'll go look much better when compared to, again, New Wave Toys or the Build-A-Cade when its size is completed. So let me get started on that after I flatten these out so we can go on a little bit easier. Now when you put this together, there's going to be decals going all the way up on the machine. So you don't want these things to separate. So I'm going to use some super glue. This is what I had lying around. I'm going to put some super glue in here to try and keep this attached. And I'm going to use a couple of these little brackets. Hopefully they're tall enough. I don't even know if they're tall enough. They might not be. Let's see. They are no way near going to be tall enough. So how will I do this indeed? I mean, you could just put it on here and pray and hope that the decals hold it on, but I don't want the decals to rip. So I am gonna try and just put some crazy glue on there and line it up, I guess, as best I can, and just hope that it stays how it should. I mean, that does feel like it's lined up pretty good there, pressing all the way forward. So I'm gonna give it an attempt. Here we go. Once you do it, you can't go back. Some in there. Gonna put some there. Some there. Some there. And we are gonna, well, we're gonna be committed in a second. There we go. And looks like that's on there pretty good. Just trying to make sure it's all lined up as best you can. Now, he doesn't say anything about using the glue. I'm just kind of doing that on my own because that's kind of what I do, you know? For right or for wrong, just trying to make sure these things are lined up as best you can. I'm going to bring it over this way a little bit. There we go. And I'll put something on top of this just to hold it down, and we'll come back to it in a little while. So again, he didn't ask for this, but I decided to do it anyway. I used some super glue just to hold these two pieces together. My assumption is the side panel artwork and the front panel artwork would have been enough to hold them together, but I just wanted to do it myself. I'm never going to take this apart. I have my own separate one that I have. So this one I wanted to be permanent, to be one solid piece. Now some people may want to actually put this on and use an X-Acto knife to cut around it. So you can put it on and take it off, but I want mine permanent, so I glued mine down. So it's permanent now. Okay, I let this sit overnight. Again, this is something I did myself. I did super glue these two together. I'm going to take this off. It's just used as a weight, just to make sure it was all pressed down pretty good. And you can see right now, I have a solid single structure right here. So the next thing really to do is just to really add the decals to this little guy here. But for me personally, one thing I would have liked to see a little bit different is, you know, this is already on the bottom. I would have liked to have seen perhaps a way for that to come off, maybe slide out and put some screw points in to keep this one solid mass. But that's just something I would have liked to have seen. It's actually fine the way it is. Again, he designed it so it's still removable. You can always put this on and use an X-Acto knife to cut around it and remove it, but I want this to be a permanent single structure. So again, nothing to take away from what he did, just little suggestions. Let's start getting on the decals. Okay, one of the first things we're going to do, there's actually only 3 decals to put on. This decal is going to go here, and there's 2 different options he has. I asked him to please send me both, and he did. This here is like more of a matte finish of the decal, but the artwork on him, the rest of this machine, is a glossy style. But this is what the matte kind of would look like. There's still a little sheen to it, but it's more of a less noticeable. And this one is more high gloss, which really more goes along with the artwork that's on here right now. You can see this one's going to go right here. It goes all the way up to the top, and it's got the little coin door. Now, the hard part I always have is make sure these decals get put on the right way and they're not on an angle, go down as smooth as possible. Now, I did learn a trick from my buddy over at Arcade Graphics. I mean, you use some tape to kind of, before you take anything apart, we'll do it right now. But the coin door here, this is a little 3D printed coin door, which goes in here. And I found you put that in there, even loose at this point, it does give you a baseline of where it needs to go. And what I usually do is I usually just take off some of the backing. Again, learn some Arcade Graphics. Take part of the backing off, you know, line it up and stick it, and then you can peel the rest off and kind of get it down a little bit better. Now, of course, there is a seam where these were joined. Again, whether you glue yours or do not glue yours, there's always going to be a little bit of a seam. But the backing is thick enough, I think, to where you won't notice it too much. Of course, there's the paper backing on here, but I don't think we're very noticeable. But I think it looks actually pretty good. It doesn't perfectly match the color on here, but again, this is a hobby project, and it's really just turning something that was actually really cool to begin with, but now making it more like a 1/6 scale. So that's really it here. So what I usually do is I start to peel off the backing here a little bit, like so. Again, this is just to get it started. Again, how you do it yourself is, of course, totally up to you. And then use a little knife here just to take off this backing. Of course, this blade is probably not the sharpest blade, but it'll get the job done. There we go. So it's really just to get it started, and once we tack it down, the rest of it should come off fairly easy. And I probably should have took a little bit more off of that, just because of how it's angled. So I'm gonna do that again, one more time, as they say. Take a little bit more off of that. Be careful you don't actually damage the actual artwork. And just make sure there's no dust or anything in there. And I'm just going to peel this back just to make it easier to get after the fact. It seems so complicated just to put on a decal, but I like my decal to be on fairly straight. Pull that down as best I can. I'm just going to line this up here and do something I don't normally do, which is eyeball it. You can see it's right here. This thing is fitting fairly well on here, which definitely helps with your alignment. And yes, I do get crazy insane with this. And actually, as I'm doing this, I think it will actually be more trouble than it's worth leaving it up like that. So I'm gonna push it back down. I think I'll have plenty of room to do it. Yeah, you can see over here, it looks pretty good on this side, and it looks pretty good on this side here. So I'm just going to press this down up here a little bit, like that. And I have to say, it looks pretty good. So if you are happy with it, and actually if I look down here, I don't like how that angle is there, so I am going to pick it up as best I can. We'll do it one more time. I can't stand when stuff is not really straight. So you can see right here, it looks a lot better than it did a second ago. That looks better. Yes, I'm much more happy with how that turned out down here. So then we're going to make it our final press. So let's pick this up, pull the rest of this off, give it a good press here, and just work it down. Just that simple. I know I get a little crazy with putting this on, but it'll drive me nuts if these were not perfectly straight. And I think that looks pretty good. So there, we just did our first decal right there. Now this coin door I'll end up gluing in later, but for right now it looks pretty good. So I think that came out pretty good, if I get it in the camera, that is. So the next thing to do is now the sides. Now the sides will be a little bit more involved because obviously it's a larger area, but let's get started on that. Okay, we only have two more things to do, and that's to put these decals on each one of the sides. And once again, you can see here, you know, MyArcade always did a really nice job with their decals. I mean, these things really do look nice and shiny, very high quality decals. Now these are going to be reproductions, standard paper, which is okay. Now this is the matte version of the decal. Again, if you put the matte decal on the front here, it would match that, but the rest of this is still glossy. So as nice as that kind of does look, I'm not going to put the matte on here. I'm going to use the gloss one because that one most closely is going to match, if not the exact color, at least the effect of it. Now, I'm looking at this, it's got to cut out pretty well, but I guess it just depends on how you get it on here. There's always going to be some differences in the way this is. So this is where I'm going to be using tape to make sure I line everything up really, really well and put it where I want. Now, when I put this on here, there's always going to be like this. You can see some color bleed through here. If I get that covered, there'll be color bleed back here. So the only thing you can really do is put this on as best you can, and then take like a black Sharpie and cover that up. Or, I mean, you could remove this, but I don't really want to remove it because I think this will adhere much better to this than to this. So it'll hold on really, really well. So the only thing I'm going to do is just get a couple pieces of tape, which I'm going to use when I find it where I do want it. I'll use this tape to kind of hold this on where I want it to be. And I'm going to line it up with the front, and then I'll just deal with the back later. So I'm just going to take this and try and get in as best a spot I think it could be. So that's all covering there. It's still okay here. And we're just going to keep adjusting this till we get it just the way we want to have it. And of course, you want the decal to cover as best you can where it is, but not make it to the point where you know, it's a pain in the butt, if you will. So I'm going to put it here, I think, just like that. And then on this side here, like that. So now this is going to hold the decal from shifting, and I will simply cut the paper here, press this down, then it will not move. I can take the rest of the paper off and kind of take it right down to the bottom. But you can see right now, the decal is covering all the artwork up here. For the most part, it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. And I'll just take a black Sharpie back here just to cover this area back there. I do appreciate everything being pre-trimmed, but it looks like the artwork could have been maybe one millimeter larger. But again, it's still not bad at all. And again, sitting on your shelf, it's going to look fantastic. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to turn this around this way a little bit, and I'm going to just verify it again, just to make sure I like how it is on there. Because once you put it on, you're not going to want to take this off again. So I was taking my finger here, make sure the decal is not coming past anywhere over here where it may get torn or come off. Again, I know most people really won't care. They'll just put it on and be happy with it. But I like to, I guess I really like to make sure things are as good as possible. Because once I put this on, I got to put a bag on it, right? And once I put a bag on it, I don't want to take the bag off. And I do think that's pretty good. It's going to sit right on there and hold, I think, pretty well. And I'm covering up as much of the artwork as I possibly can. There's a little bleed of the artwork on that side, but nothing crazy. Okay, what I decided to do is versus put this on first and then try and color it, I'm going to put it on now and then maybe make it a little bit easier for me to adjust. So all I'm going to do is just take this here and really just put a couple layers on just in these areas here. I'll give it a second to dry. I'll do the same thing for back here. And I'll give it a second more. This is another coat. And this should be more than enough to make sure that it's covered. Kills me to actually color that, but hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Now I'm gonna let that dry, but I just want to see real quick how that'll look. And see, it gives me more ability to play with the decal. So I'm gonna do the same thing here on the front as well, just to make it again easier and allow me more leeway to put on the decal. Always keep a good Sharpie available. Not a paid promotion. Okay, I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll try putting on the decal. Okay, so by using the Sharpie here, I gave myself a lot more leeway. I like how that looks. You can't see any of the artwork bleeding underneath. So I'm pretty happy with this. So I'm going to cut the paper under here, put this down, and I'll bring the rest of this down here all the way around. So let's see. We'll get started. I'm going to go this way maybe? Probably should go the other way. Cut this paper off of here. You can still see, you know, the nice artwork underneath. We're going to cover up, but it's still going to look pretty good, I think. So let's just get this back down. Give it one last eye because I'm insane. It does kind of suck being a little crazy with this type of stuff because it definitely makes you not sleep sometimes at night. And I'm going to peel just enough of this back, just to get this adhered to where it won't move and I can do the rest of it. There we go. So I can just take this, make sure there's no bubbles. Now the paper here is thick enough where, you know, you do want to make sure there's no dust under there, obviously. But that went down nice. So now I got to just do is just take off this tape, and the rest of it will go much quicker. Let these tape off right there. Do the same thing on this side here. Then we can pick this up. You can see the artwork here and 3D printed here. I'm just going to start peeling this and just work it with my hand as I come down, just to make sure there's no air bubbles. Some people use a squeegee, but I find it's fine. Now here's my seam, and it does cover that seam relatively well. Kind of happy with that. And just like that, we have one side done. And that came, I think, out pretty darn well. Tilt it up here a little bit so you guys can kind of see it a little bit better. But that looks really well. Now here's that seam. Now in theory you could cut that and still take this on and off, but again I bought one specific for this build here. So we have two sides done. All that's left now to do is this side right here. So let me get on that. So I'm going to do the same thing where if I take the artwork, and here's the other artwork here. See, there's still a little bit of the color bleed of the artwork here or here. So I'm going to do the same thing I did a moment ago. I'm just going to take a Sharpie and I'm just going to start coloring this up here and here just to keep it hidden. Again, make sure it's a new Sharpie so we have lots of ink on there, and just go across it. Okay, I'm going to try and do the same thing I did on the other side. Again, you can see I used some Sharpie just to make sure the under decal is not seen. I'm just going to line this up and again get some tape. And we'll use this tape to hold the decal in place. We're all ready with that. I'm just going to line this up and get it put on. Okay, after all the decals are put on, the next thing to work on is this joystick. Now this joystick is a little bit on the large side, so he did include two of the replacement joysticks in this bag here. I'm going to take them out here. Whoop. Of course, one goes right to the floor. So you can see here's the joystick he makes. It's a 3D printed top on a standoff you would use in a PC case or in the back of a VGA or DVI port, these old connectors here. So I'm assuming it's going to screw right in. I'm not sure if it's going to be more to scale. We'll take a look. This is the original one, and it's just screwed in. Just got to give it a twist, and it will come right out. So there's the original, and we'll compare it to, I'll try and compare it to the replacement. You can see it's much smaller. So let's see how it looks inside here. I'm not sure if I'll like the look, but let's see if it even goes in. It does appear to fit. Maybe I don't screw it all the way down, perhaps. Well, it definitely still does work, left and right. I'm not sure if I like it yet though, but we'll try, because that's actually, you know, how he made this kit. So I'm going to put it on there. The original one does seem a little bit too big. So I think that might be more to scale. I just have to get used to it. This is what I've always had. So I'm going to leave that in, and I'm assuming it doesn't go all the way down. Well, maybe, I don't know, because I'm going to put it all the way down. I think that's as far as it goes. There we go. So that might be more to scale. And again, it's just go left and right. That's the only joystick movements you have. But that's it. So it really should only take you maybe 10-15 minutes. It takes me an hour and a half because, you know, I'm too crazy when it comes to this stuff. But that's pretty much it. What's my final thoughts of this modification to the My Arcade Space Invaders by Jeffrey McKelvy? You know, it's really cool. I mean, it fits the scale of GRS Build-A-Cade. You can see here really, really well. Also, the New Wave Toys machines. So that alone makes it worth it. It wasn't hard to do. If you want to make it fit your scale, it's a really good option. And I think it did a really good job with the 3D prints and the artwork on here. And it just adds a whole new level to this. Now, it's a couple things I would have liked to have changed. Like so right now I use crazy glue to hold this together. I would not have minded some holes in the bottom of his base, and then maybe drill in a couple of small little screws to hold it in place, or something along those lines. Again, some people may want to be able to separate it. Let me put this down for 1 second before I drop everything here. So I like it as being one piece. I don't want it to come apart. Some people may want that, and if you simply cut the decals, you can do that. But I think it's really designed not to be taken apart. So I would have liked to have had some ways to secure it more securely than even the crazy glue, because who knows how long that's going to last. So it would have been nice to be able to go under here and put some screws in there, maybe slide this in after the fact. So again, nothing crazy. It's a home project. I think they did a really fantastic job with everything else, the little coin door down here. And it just looks amazing. When you compare it to, you know, the original, it really makes a big, well, it's bigger of course, but it makes a big difference in the unit itself, including, you know, small little touches like a new joystick down here to make it a little bit more arcade accurate. I think this is fantastic, and this is going right in my collection with my other New Wave toys and GRS Build-A-Cades 1/6 scale, and it fits that scale really nice. So I'll put some information down below how you can order one if you'd like it yourself. Again, he orders this in the glossy artwork or the more matte finish. But I think with the original decals are still on here, you really want to go with the glossy. In my opinion, the little coin down here is a nice touch, and again, the joystick. So again, it really would probably take normal people 10 minutes to do this modification. It took me well over an hour because I'm just anal with these kind of things. But I do have a nice bag for it, all set to go. But if you did like the video, please give me a thumbs up. It takes just a second for you guys, but it really helps out my channel and being recognized in the algorithm, so more than 3 people can see the video. I would appreciate that. And if you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing. I always appreciate it. I'm on my way for 10,000. 8 years! Maybe I'll get 10,000 this year. That'd be really awesome. But that's it. I really appreciate all of you guys' time. It's always appreciated when you take some time to watch my videos, because you have so many things you can do in your life and you're watching my video, and I always appreciate that. And I appreciate you. But I do want to leave you with my same thing I tell everyone every time. No matter what you do, how you play your games, how you make some modifications to your games, remember to always tell your family and friends that you love them, because tomorrow's never promised. And just make sure you have some fun and game on. Game on. Sit, Blue Blue, sit. Good dog.